So on Israel, I know you've said before many times that you're trying to push Israel to end this high-intensity effort.
No, that's not what we said, but go ahead.
Okay, there's a request from lawmakers that you do, in fact, do that. Could you talk a little bit about where that conversation stands, what Israel has agreed to in terms of moving to lower intensity conflict in Gaza, and have they agreed with you on a timetable?
The Israelis say they, too, recognize the need to transition to a different phase of fighting. I mean, in any military campaign, Trevor, you're gonna transition to a different set of objectives, and you're going to achieve those different set of objectives through different tactics and operations. I mean, that's just standard for the conduct of military operations. They understand, they have said themselves that they realize they're going to have to transition from a higher intensity level of operations, such as what they're doing now, to something a bit lower intensity. They will decide when. They will decide what lower intensity looks like and what that means. What we have done, Secretary Austin just recently in the region, as well as Secretary Blinken, have talked to them about our lessons learned in doing those kinds of transitions and what we learned, what we did right, what we didn't do right, what they should be looking for, what questions they should be asking themselves, as well as asking them some tough questions. And certainly when Jake was there, just in the last few days, had lengthy discussions with his Israeli counterparts in the War Cabinet about those questions, answering those tough questions. So again, we're not going to speak for their military operations. We recognize and they recognize that a transition is not only reasonable, but probably the most viable way to continue this fight. They'll work it out.
I guess my question, do you have a common understanding on what that timetable looks like at this point?
We are not dictating terms and timelines to the Israelis. We have certainly talked about the importance of moving to lower intensity operations, and obviously we don't want them to do it sooner than they think they can do it safely and effectively, but we believe that a transition, in the near future is the best possible outcome.
Point of clarification on the president's comments yesterday on Venezuela. He said that there was an agreement with Maduro where Maduro said he would agree to essentially everything the U.S. had laid out on election reforms. Does that include having Maria Machado be represented as an opposition candidate on the ballot when that election takes place?
I'm going to not get too involved in the diplomatic specific conversations that we had. What the president said was that the Maduro regime did agree to certain electoral proposals to include and were supported by opposition parties. It's important that they meet all those commitments. I think I'll leave it there.
But does that include having her specifically?
I'm going to leave it the way I just put it.
One more, just on Mexico. In that conversation, was there any discussion between the president and AMLO around fentanyl? There's been some reporting that we've done that Mexico's been essentially inflating its statistics on how many of these fentanyl labs it's actually taking down. Is that something that came up?
Well, we've talked to the Mexicans routinely about the flow of fentanyl and other narcotics and trafficking of drugs across the border. That's a routine part of our discussions. The focus today was really about the migratory flow and the pressure that's being put on the southern border.